Is Turtle Boy a hero or an irresponsible journalist? Is he an independent reporter breaking a story that might soon be the biggest true crime case since O.J. Simpson? Or is he smearing innocent people? I'd heard of Turtle Boy for years and maybe saw a tweet or two, but I hadn't really followed. He's based out of Worcester, a city I used to own a bar in, but which I left more than 10 years ago, BAT, before the age of Turtle. So my first real exposure to him is through this case, the framing of Karen Read. Friends in law enforcement were sending me links to his story when it first broke. My first impression was that it was hard to read because of the format, with very short paragraphs, sometimes only a sentence separated by a whole bunch of pics. But I've come around fully, well, almost fully. I don't agree with every statement. He can jump to conclusions that are a little harsher than I would, but there's no doubt he's breaking important stories. I guess the bigger question should be why we need a Turtle Boy to break these stories. And I think he'd be the first to agree that's a big problem. Has our society become so corrupt that it takes a blogger to cover stories that don't fit the preferred narratives of a certain dominant ideology, or stories that threaten the power structure, a power structure that now combines big companies, state and local government, and a certain political party that pretends to care about the little guy? It's a sad state of affairs that we need a Turtle Boy. And yet we do. Love him or hate him, we do need him. But who is the Turtle Boy? And perhaps just as important, since I'm reviewing this from a YouTube channel, is the turtle entertaining? He has a book on Amazon, I Am Turtle Boy, if you want to know the full story. Aidan Kearney, a.k.a. Turtle Boy, taught high school history for 11 years in Worcester, Massachusetts. Starting a blog under his own name, he soon found himself in hot water with the school administration. They suspended him without pay, and thus Turtle Boy was born, as Aidan decided to blog anonymously under the name Turtle Boy Sports. In November of 2014, he was forced out of teaching when a blogger in Buffalo wrote something about Aidan that was eventually ruled libelous. Buffalo blogger accused him of sexually assaulting a woman at a Patriots-Bills game. Since the claim was ruled libelous, it's fair to conclude the charge was fictional. When you express opinions that are politically incorrect, they're going to come after you. The people from that side of the ideological aisle are ends justify the means kind of people. Any tactic used to destroy those that don't think like them is considered acceptable. The incident ended Aidan's teaching career. What began as a reverent sports opinion evolved into irreverent investigative journalism. People that weren't politically correct or connected to the tribal political power structure in the state of Massachusetts were drawn to his blog. If you had the inside scoop on corruption within the state, you certainly weren't going to turn to the Boston Globe. Where could you turn? Where could you go to take on this tribal establishment? Boy Who Would Be Turtle fit the bill in many ways. He was fearless. He not only was willing to take on that tribal power structure, he loathed those within it. And he had a big enough audience. Something which on the surface seems like a contradiction, but in reality captures the heart of the problem, is this. The biggest stories Turtle Boy has broken involve police corruption. Yet the shelled one's biggest fans and biggest anonymous sources seem to be those in law enforcement. Seems like a contradiction, right? But the truth is that most cops are good cops. They went into that line of work because they wanted to be on team good guys. However, they're in the perfect position to see all the bullshit. The cops who advance the fastest to positions of rank have a variety of qualities. Some of them are really smart and do well on tests. Some of them are really good at their job. Some of them are natural leaders. But one thing you need to get ahead in most police departments, especially as you get near Boston, is this. Political pull. You got to be plugged into the tribe. Maybe you were born into it with family connections. Maybe you made the right campaign contributions. And, of course, you always protected the right people. You were with the program. Had to sell a little bit of your soul. And the thing about selling pieces of your soul is that once you start, eventually, you give away the whole thing. It's inevitable. And you know who understands this the most? The good cops doing their job. Many of them are grunts. They don't have the pull to advance. They aren't part of the tribe. They aren't willing to sell their soul. But what they see on the job and can't talk about without being destroyed by the tribe eats at them. So they look for some place to turn. Someone who, for some reason I can't fathom, rides a turtle. So it seems to me Eden is fighting on the front line of a war we all need to do our part in. That doesn't mean he's always right. I'm new to the whole turtle mania, but I can see he probably makes some mistakes and sometimes offends a little more than is wise for most of us because he's incautious. Yet thank God he is. He has a unique role to play, and caution would get in the way. So let's get to some clips. These were from Turtle Boy's live show. To my surprise, I found it addicting. Couldn't turn it off. It's live. It's one guy by himself with a camera, a mic, and a green screen. He's running chat, soliciting donations, taking texts, making phone calls. Somehow he pulls it off. Just a few shows, I can see some of what pisses people off and much of what people love. He has his own style, and yes, many times he managed to make me laugh out loud. Let's see if I can show you some of the reasons everyone either loves or hates the turtle.
I posted it on social media, but I'm gonna bring it up over here because I used some foul language in it, and I think it's completely appropriate to do so because this person is garbage, and so we just need to read this real quick.
So here you see that one-man show aspect. He's opening old tweets, showing them on the screen. It's live, unedited, raw. The background he's using is from the little park behind City Hall in Worcester, where for some reason, someone long ago created the sculpture of a naked boy riding a turtle. The case Eden's talking about is one he's almost breaking by himself. Last year, a Boston cop was found dead on the snowy lawn of another Boston cop in the town of Canton. The dead cop's girlfriend, Karen Reed, has been charged with running him over and leaving him for dead. But there's evidence that's not the real story. And in fact, the cop, O'Keefe, went into a party inside the other cop's house and was severely beat up. It's a story that seems to involve a pretty widespread cover-up. I mean, the kind of cover-up that if it was a Hollywood screenplay would get rejected as too far-fetched. Yet the evidence Turtle Boy is reporting is pretty compelling. So apparently, a cousin of the killed cop contacted Turtle Boy through Twitter. She's not happy with his reporting. She's obviously fully bought into the Karen Reed as killer narrative, and she's not prepared to challenge it. And the shelled one is not impressed. He calls her garbage. We'll see from this sequence both why he's controversial and loved. Who calls a grieving family member garbage, no matter how off her opinion is? I myself would probably just ignore her. Here's more.
So we just need to read this real quick. All right. So we have here a text. Okay. So I got this message on Twitter from Vanessa. What's her name? Vanessa Rizzitano. She's an account executive, so she's really important. And at Reagan.com, a former reporter at something, CNY Central, a former anchor for some, it sounds like a New York, and then a former writer for Boston. I don't know. She's a news person. Okay. She goes on TV and she reads the cue cards. That's her job. She considers herself news. So she goes, as a former news anchor and reporter, as soon as I see that, I'm like, oh, nice. Someone from the media is reaching out and appreciating what I do. That's nice. But no, as it turns, I have to say your coverage of my cousin who was brutally murdered is absolutely disgusting and inhumane.
Okay, so he's not reading this for the first time, but still, watch his face as he sees himself described as disgusting and inhumane. He actually seems wounded. I've watched 3 of his live shows now, and this kind of sensitivity is actually common, but this is what happens next.
Okay. So I'm inhumane. I'd just like to remind you that her cousin was beaten to death and then left out in the cold, probably while he was still alive, so that he could die a lonely and painful death from hypothermia. But I'm inhumane. I'm the real problem. Imagine saying that as soon as I see that, it's like, okay, sorry, What's her name? What's her name? Vanessa. I'm going to be as diplomatic about as this as I can. Kindly fuck off.
Sorry, I can't help but laughing every time I see it. Am I wrong for finding it humorous? There's just something entertaining and funny about his delivery. But let's also analyze. In seconds, he goes from being stung by being called inhumane to lashing out. Is it possibly inappropriate? I don't know, maybe. We're talking about a grieving relative. Well, I guess it's also inappropriate that I laugh at this clip. Eff it, laughter's good for the immune system.
Like, seriously, fuck you. You're not gonna lecture me and tell me that I am inhumane when your cousin was beaten to death and the people who did it are just walking around like nothing happened and have been doing so for quite some time. Your job is to tell a news story, not torture my grieving family. Your grieving family? This is torturing them? How is it torturing them? She goes on to say, the audacity of you to think it is acceptable to post pictures of a man's body who was murdered. So stop right there. Man's body who was murdered? So posting pictures of him, they're the autopsy reports. They're in the documents. They're in the court documents. And I have gotten a lot of crap for this. I apologize for nothing. I want to be perfectly clear about that. I am not the guy. Maybe some of you are familiar. I'm not the normal mainstream media you come to and you're like, I am so outraged and offended. And you will do what I say now because I'm offended. And that's how it works. I just tell you I'm offended and I'm outraged and you do what I tell you to do. No, I'm not that guy. I'm the other guy. I'm the guy who laughs at you. I'm the guy who takes a screenshot of your stupid comments and posts them on my page so people can see how stupid you are. That's me.
This is not only funny, but gets to the heart of it. We've become a virtue signaling society. And one of the main ways we signal our virtue is by constantly showing we're offended by someone. And then every one of our institutions, including the media, especially the media, has to bend over backwards between their legs, pucker up, and kiss their own sphincter in order to show how sensitive they are to anyone who might be offended about something. Turtle Boy doesn't like the taste of sphincter, so he won't play along. The lips of Boston Globe reporters are smeared with sphincter. They've actually grown to like it, but this Turtle Man is not afraid to offend. Sometimes that means he's inappropriately offensive, but it also means he's willing to risk offense in order to get to the truth. Exactly what's needed in this self-sphincter kissing society of ours.
So she tells me here that, so those pictures are important because you need to see that for a couple of reasons. Number one, the O'Keefe family is under the impression that John O'Keefe was killed by Karen Read backing into him going 5 miles an hour in a driveway. That's what they believe. When you see those autopsy photos, you immediately know that cannot have possibly happened. Okay? This man was 6'2" tall, 217 pounds. The Lexus SUV that hit him would have struck him at a very low rate of speed at around the midsection, right? Maybe around here. That's where it would have hit him. There was no bruising on his body anywhere on his chest. Anywhere on his chest. All of the wounds were to his face, which was swollen shut, his eyes. You needed to see that. There were cuts on the back of his neck. His skull was fractured multiple times, and his arm was chewed up. Now, what is your defense for that? Did he get did he fall down and get eaten by coyotes? Is that what you're saying? Is that your defense here?
I myself would correct the O'Keefe family member more politely, but that's not his style. And the bottom line is he's right here, or seems to be. And that's a key thing. If you're going to be offensive, it helps to be right. The O'Keefe family has been through a lot, and for a year, they've bought into a narrative about how their family member died. They made Karen Read the target of their anger. I get it. It's hard to reverse gears. Once people buy into a narrative about anything in life, it's hard to let go. The human brain is a pattern recognizer. That's what it does. So it loves narratives. You look at that nice, juicy red apple on the table, that's a narrative. your brain makes out of the fluctuating atoms and quantum bits. If you blinked and suddenly the apple became an orange, wouldn't be happy. No doubt the O'Keefe family got a ton of emotional support from the Boston police community and from the Thin Blue Line community generally. So how does it feel to find out they killed your son? Not good. Not good at all. The turtle is correct in pointing it out. The autopsy photo is absolutely a vital piece of information to make public. Look, we're way past the time when we can just trust the police, the FBI, the prosecutors, Channel 5, the Boston Globe, the CIA. Yeah, those are still important institutions, many good people there, but to just trust them blindly, well, to just trust them blindly is to stretch your head beneath your legs and taste more sphincter. This O'Keefe cousin is essentially saying, trust the DA, trust the state police, trust the Canton police. Just let them do their job and stay out of things, you turtle fucker. Just trust. Sphincter is a healthy part of any diet. So he calls the phones of several of the people he suspects, and we should suspect, are involved with the cover-up of a murder. It's entertaining. Is this kind of thing out of bounds? None of these people have been charged with a crime. I don't even know if they're under investigation. I wouldn't do this kind of thing, but I'm actually glad he does. Look, the job of the media, and also people like comedians, is to hold the feet of the powerful to the fire. They only do that to people that are on the wrong side of the thinking aisle, or people that aren't members of the tribe. Unless one of those plugged-in people in Canton or Boston uses the wrong pronoun and fails to make absolution for this mortal sin, the Boston Globe will never hold their feet to the fire. As long as people donate to the right campaigns, confess their privilege, mouth the right words, in other words, get with the program, Channel 5 will never investigate them. Never. It's the tribal way in Massachusetts. As the years go by, it gets more and more rigid. And if there aren't turtle boys around to challenge them, who will? I'm not a turtle creature, but I do have a very thin shell, so if you don't hit subscribe and notify, I'll be very vulnerable to predators. You wouldn't want that, would you?